The massive council chamber was silent. Hundreds of alien representatives from across the galaxy sat in raised seats that circled the room. In the center stood Elena Chen, the only human in the room. She wore a simple blue uniform with Earth's flag on her shoulder. Her face showed no fear as she waited for the council to speak. "The council has reached its decision," announced High Elder Zintar, a tall, blue-skinned alien with 4 arms. His voice echoed through the chamber. "Humanity has been found guilty of dangerous unpredictability and evolutionary incompatibility with galactic peace." Elena stood straight, her hands behind her back. She had expected this. For the last 5 years, humanity had expanded quickly into space, building colonies on 20 planets. This scared the older alien races who had taken thousands of years to do the same. "Humans advance too quickly," continued Zintar. "Your species develops technologies without proper testing. You take risks that endanger stability. In just 1 century since discovering faster-than-light travel, you have colonized 20 worlds and created military forces that rival those of species who have been spacefaring for millennia." Around the chamber, many aliens nodded in agreement. Some looked at Elena with fear, others with disgust. "We are simply trying to survive," Elena replied calmly. "Humans adapt. That's what we do." "That is exactly why you are dangerous," said Counselor Vex Lim, a reptilian alien with scales that changed color as he spoke. "Your species exists in a constant state of change and chaos. The Council exists to maintain order." Elena looked around at the Council members. Most represented species that lived for hundreds or even thousands of years. They planned in centuries, not decades. They found humanity's quick decisions and rapid changes disturbing. "The sentence is exile," announced Zintar. "All human colonies within Council space must be abandoned within 1 standard year. Your species will relocate to the Outer Rim territories, beyond Council jurisdiction." Murmurs spread through the chamber. The Outer Rim was considered worthless space. Systems with few habitable planets, dangerous radiation storms, and limited resources. Many believed sending humans there was essentially a death sentence. "And if we refuse?" Elena asked, though she already knew the answer. "Then the Council Defense Fleet will enforce the decision," Zintar said simply. "We hope your species is wise enough to avoid that outcome." The Arcturian ambassador, a tall being with crystalline skin that sparkled under the chamber lights, approached Elena as the council session ended. "Your species lacks the patience and discipline to survive out there," he said, his voice like wind chimes. "The Rim will consume you. Within a century, humans will be nothing but a footnote in galactic history." Elena looked directly into the ambassador's faceted eyes. "You've mistaken our greatest weakness for our greatest strength," she replied. Later that day, Elena sent her report to Earth. In a secure communication room provided by the Council, she faced the screen where 5 human leaders appeared. "It's official then," said President Williams, her face grim. "They want us gone." "Yes, Madam President," Elena confirmed. "We have 1 year to evacuate all colonies in Council space. That's 20 settlements and nearly 5 million people." Admiral Jackson frowned. "The Outer Rim is barely mapped. Limited resources, unstable star systems, and who knows what else. They're hoping we'll die out there. Or come crawling back, begging to be allowed to live under their rules," added Director Santos. Elena straightened her uniform. "I've been studying the Rim data they provided. It's minimal, but there's something interesting. The Council races avoid the Rim not just because it's dangerous, but because it's unpredictable. Their technologies are designed for stable environments. Their planning requires certainty. And humans thrive on uncertainty," said Dr. Morrison, a smile forming on his face. "Exactly," Elena nodded. "They've given us what they think is a punishment, but it might be exactly what we need. Space without their rules, without their limitations." President Williams considered this. "How should we proceed, Ambassador?" "We should appear defeated in public," Elena suggested. "But privately, we convert our evacuation ships to carry industrial equipment instead of luxury items. We send our best engineers, scientists, and adaptable colonists first, not last. The Council will monitor us closely at first, but their attention spans are short by their standards. A few years at most. A place with no rules, Admiral Jackson mused. We could develop technologies the Council has banned, build ships they've never imagined, and find allies, Elena added. The Rim isn't empty. There are species out there that the Council has ignored or dismissed. Potential friends who might appreciate human ingenuity. The leaders discussed the plan for hours. When they finished, the decision was unanimous. Humanity would not just survive in the Outer Rim, they would thrive there. As Elena left the communication room, she was surprised to find Counselor Marev Kol waiting for her. The small gray-skinned alien looked troubled. Ambassador Chen, he said quietly, I voted against your banishment. Thank you, Elena replied, studying the alien carefully. I have lived for over 900 of your years, Marev Kol continued. I have seen species come and go. The Council fears what it does not understand. And they don't understand humans, Elena finished. Marev Kol nodded. The Council believes they are sentencing your kind to a slow extinction. I am not so sure. He paused, looking around to ensure they were alone. There are things in the Rim, resources and remnants of civilizations far older than the Council. Things we have chosen not to pursue because they do not fit our understanding of how the universe should work. Elena's interest was piqued. What kind of things? That is for you to discover, the alien said. I only tell you this because the galaxy needs change. The Council has grown too comfortable, too set in its ways. As Marev Kol walked away, Elena felt a new sense of purpose. The Council thought they were removing a problem by banishing humanity. Instead, they might be setting them free. Within weeks, the first human evacuation ships left for the Rim. To the Council's surprise, there were volunteers eager to go first. The ships carried little in the way of comfort, but were loaded with manufacturing equipment, terraforming technology, and the most adaptable people humanity had to offer. Elena's final transmission to Earth Command was simple. They've given us exactly what we need, a place with no rules. Unknown to her, Council intelligence intercepted the message. The alien analysts didn't understand the significance. They reported it as a sign of human delusion in the face of punishment. They would learn their mistake too late. 3 years had passed since humanity's banishment to the Outer Rim. The Galactic Council had mostly forgotten about the humans, believing they were struggling to survive in the harsh conditions of uncharted space. Few Council members even bothered to check the reports from the border patrols. This changed when the Council patrol ship Vigilant detected unusual energy readings while passing near the edge of Rim space. Captain Thornvex, a veteran of the Council Defense Force, ordered his ship to investigate. Scan the system again, he commanded his crew. These readings cannot be correct. The scans are consistent, Captain, replied his science officer. The gas giant in the Helios system is showing signs of extensive mining operations, and there's something in orbit around it. Thornvex frowned, his scaled skin darkening with concern. The Helios system had been considered worthless by Council surveys. The gas giant was highly toxic, filled with corrosive compounds that would damage most ships that tried to harvest it. Take us closer but maintain alert status, he ordered. As the Vigilant approached the system, they were shocked by what they found. A massive orbital shipyard circled the gas giant. Robotic mining drones dived in and out of the planet's upper atmosphere, extracting materials that Council technology couldn't safely collect. Several ships of unfamiliar design were under construction in the shipyard. Captain, we're being hailed, announced the communication officer. The view screen activated, showing a human male in a dark blue uniform. Behind him was a busy command center with more humans working at various stations. This is Commander Jackson Reed of the United Earth ship Pathfinder. You're approaching human territory, Council vessel. State your purpose. Thornvex was momentarily speechless. The UES Pathfinder was clearly a warship, with weapon systems unlike any he had seen before. It had appeared from behind the shipyard, its stealth systems having hidden it from the Vigilant sensors until now. This is Captain Thornvex of the Council vessel Vigilant. We detected unusual energy signatures and came to investigate. We did not expect to find this. Reed smiled. You expected to find us struggling to survive, not thriving. How is this possible? Thornvex couldn't help asking. This system was deemed uninhabitable in our surveys. Turns out when you tell humans they can't have something, they get really motivated to prove you wrong, Reed replied. Your council races avoid challenges. We embrace them. Reed offered the council ship a tour of the facility, a calculated show of confidence. Thornvex accepted, too curious to refuse. On board the massive orbital station, Thornvex and two of his officers followed Reed through corridors filled with busy workers. The humans had adapted quickly to life in the rim. They wore specialized suits that protected them from radiation and had developed technologies to extract valuable elements from the toxic atmosphere of the gas giant. The Helios system has incredible resources, explained Dr. Sarah Chen, the station's chief scientist and daughter of Ambassador Elena Chen. Elements that are rare in council space are abundant here. The toxic compounds that made your people avoid this planet actually help us refine certain materials. But the radiation levels? Began Thornvex. We adapted, Dr. Chen said simply. We developed better shielding. We engineered microorganisms that can repair radiation damage to our cells. When faced with problems, humans find solutions. In a large observation room, they showed the council officers their greatest achievement. A map of the outer rim with over a dozen human settlements marked on it. Each colony was connected by lines representing stable warp corridors that the humans had discovered or created. The council believed the rim's chaotic space made stable warp corridors impossible, said Reed, watching Thornvex's reaction. We discovered the chaos actually follows patterns, just complex ones that your people didn't take the time to understand. How many are you now? Asked Thornvex. The Rim Confederation includes 15 colonies with a total population of nearly 7 million, Reed replied proudly. And growing every day. More people volunteer to join us than we have ships to transport them. When Thornvex returned to council space, his report caused a stir among the highest levels of the council leadership. The humans had not only survived, but were building an impressive civilization in the very region the council had thought would destroy them. They're using technologies we declared too dangerous to develop, argued Elder Zintar during an emergency council session. Their genetic modifications, their AI systems, their matter conversion technologies, all violate council safety protocols. But they're outside our jurisdiction now, reminded Councillor Marav Cole. That was the point of sending them to the Rim. We cannot enforce our rules there. Perhaps we should establish diplomatic relations with this Rim Confederation, suggested a younger council member. Their resource extraction technologies could be valuable to us. No, declared Zintar firmly. We must keep them isolated. Mark their systems as an anomaly in the records, but take no official notice. They will reach their limits soon enough. But privately, many council members were disturbed by the reports. The humans had accomplished in 3 years what would have taken most council races centuries. They had adapted to conditions the council deemed impossible to survive. Most concerning of all, they had done it without the council's guidance or control. Back in the Helios system, Commander Reed stood with Dr. Chen in the shipyard's control center, watching as the newest vessel of the Confederation fleet took shape. The council patrol left rather quickly, Chen remarked with a smile. They saw enough to worry them, but not enough to understand what we're really doing, Reed replied. They still think like the council, slow, cautious, bound by their ancient rules. On the main screen, reports from other human colonies showed similar progress. The Proxima colony had developed new agricultural techniques that allowed them to grow food in the harsh conditions of their world. The New Terra settlement had discovered ruins of an ancient civilization, with technology beyond even the Council's understanding. The Horizon colony had made contact with a non-Council species native to the Rim, opening possibilities for new alliances. My mother was right, Chen said, looking at the reports. The Council didn't banish us to die. They set us free. Reed nodded, watching as workers assembled the powerful engines of the new ship. What the council races never understood is that humans don't just survive adversity, we thrive on it. Out here, beyond their rules and limitations, there's nothing to hold us back. The ship in the construction bay was nearly complete, the first of a new class of vessels that could travel deeper into the rim than any before it. Its name was visible. On the hull, UES Discovery, humanity's journey into the unknown was just beginning. 20 years had passed since humanity's banishment to the outer rim. The Rim Confederation had grown to 35 colonies with over 20 million people. Human ships traveled freely through the once feared region, using warp corridors they had mapped or created. The Council largely ignored them, believing that the humans would eventually reach the natural limits of their expansion. That changed when reports came of strange attacks on the outer edges of both Rim and Council space. Ships disappeared without warning. Communication relays went silent. Distant outposts were found empty with no signs of their crews. On the research station Nexus Prime, Dr. Amara Okafor received an urgent message from Confederation Command. As the station's holographic screen activated, the grim face of Admiral Elena Chen appeared. The former ambassador had risen to become the military leader of the Confederation. Dr. Okafor, the situation has gotten worse, said Admiral Chen without greeting. 3 more outposts have gone silent. We've identified the attackers. The screen changed to show grainy footage from a security camera. Strange ships with organic-looking hulls moved with unnatural precision. Creatures that seemed part machine and part living tissue emerged from the ships. The Vex, said Dr. Okafor, her eyes widening. I thought they were just stories. They're very real, replied Chen. The Council has known about them for centuries, but kept their existence secret from lesser species like us. The Vex attack every few decades, then retreat back to the deep rim. The Council's policy has always been to abandon any area the Vex show interest in. But we can't abandon the rim, said Okafor. It's our home now. Exactly, Chen nodded. That's why I'm sending you everything we have on the Vex. Your neural interface research might be our best hope. Dr. Okafor was the Confederation's leading expert on human-machine connections. She had developed special implants that let humans link directly with their ships and equipment, making them more efficient than any Council technology. For weeks, Dr. Okafor and her team studied the data on the Vex. They discovered that the strange beings used a form of quantum communication that operated on principles similar to human neural patterns. This gave her an idea. What if we could use our neural implants to disrupt their communication? She suggested to her team. If they can't coordinate, they can't attack effectively. Working day and night, they modified the neural implant technology to create what they called PSI shields, devices that could project human neural patterns into the quantum field, creating noise that confused Vex communications. When the Vex launched their next attack against the human colony of Helios Station, they found themselves facing ships equipped with the new PSI shields. The human vessels appeared to vanish from Vex perception, reappearing only to fire their weapons before disappearing again. On the bridge of the Confederation flagship Defiance, Captain Maya Rodriguez watched as her small fleet outmaneuvered the larger Vex force. Boarding teams ready, Captain, reported her first officer. Rodriguez nodded. This was the riskiest part of their plan. While most Council races retreated from Vex attacks, humans had developed a different strategy. Special teams equipped with advanced versions of the neural implants would allow themselves to be captured, then use their technology to take over Vex systems from inside. Launch the boarding pods, she ordered. Small craft shot from the human ships directly toward the largest Vex vessel. The pods looked damaged and helpless, perfect bait for the Vex who typically captured intact technology to study and absorb. Inside one of the pods, Lieutenant James Chen, grandson of Elena Chen, led a team of neural specialists. Remember the plan, he told his team as the Vex tractor beam pulled them in. Once inside, we link with their systems and upload the disruption program. We'll have about 5 minutes before their immune systems detect us. The pod was drawn into a large opening in the Vex ship. Inside was a nightmarish blend of mechanical and biological components. pulsing tissue connected to metal circuits. Strange fluids flowed through transparent tubes. As expected, the Vex brought the pod to a central analysis chamber. The moment the pod was secured, Chen and his team activated their neural implants. Through special interfaces, they connected to the Vex ship's systems. "I'm in," reported Specialist Rivera, her eyes closed in concentration as her mind moved through the Vex network. "Their system architecture is like nothing I've ever seen. But there are patterns. I can work with this." Within minutes, the team had uploaded the disruption program into the Vex ship's core. The effect was immediate. The organic-mechanical hybrid vessel began to shudder. Lights flickered. The strange sounds that filled the ship grew erratic. "Back to the pod now," ordered Chen as they disconnected from the Vex systems. They barely made it back before the Vex ship's internal defenses activated. Their pod shot out from the dying vessel just as it began to break apart. Similar scenes played out across the battlefield as other boarding teams completed their missions. The Vex fleet, suddenly unable to coordinate, fell into disarray. Some ships crashed into each other. Others retreated in what seemed like panic. The Battle of Threshold, as it came to be known, marked the first major defeat of the Vex by any species. News of the victory spread quickly through both Rim and Council space. In the Council chamber, the footage of human ships defeating the Vex caused an uproar. "How did they do this?" demanded Elder Zintar. "We have faced the Vex for millennia without such success." A Council military analyst presented his report. "They used tactics we would consider suicidal," he explained, "allowing their ships to be captured, sending personnel directly onto Vex vessels. No Council race would risk their people in such a manner." "Yet it worked," noted Councillor Marv Cole. "They've pushed the Vex back and secured large sections of Rim space that have been considered too dangerous to use for centuries. They don't fight like a species with self-preservation instincts," the analyst concluded. "They fight like they have something to prove." Back at Nexus Prime, Dr. Okafor received the highest honor the Confederation could bestow, the Star of Humanity. As Admiral Chen presented the medal, Okafor asked a question. "Do you think the Council will see us differently now?" Chen smiled. "They're beginning to. They thought we would die out here. Instead, we've done what they never could. We've adapted and overcome the Rim's greatest threat." "What's next?" asked Okafor. Chen looked at the star map showing human territory, expanding through the Rim. "We keep exploring, we keep adapting, and most importantly, we prepare for the day when we return to Council space, not as exiles, but as equals." The Vex retreated to the deepest parts of the Rim, but humans knew they would return eventually. Already, ships were being built with more advanced versions of Okafor's technology. Human colonies strengthened their defenses. Unlike the Council, races who hoped threats would go away, humans prepared to face them head-on. The Rim had challenged humanity, and humanity had risen to meet that challenge. The next challenge would be even greater, changing the minds of a Council that had existed for millennia. 50 years had passed since humanity's banishment to the Outer Rim. What the Galactic Council had intended as punishment had become humanity's greatest opportunity. After defeating the Vex and securing large sections of Rim space, the human-led Rim Confederation turned its attention to a new frontier: commerce. The sleek trading vessel Windfall glided toward the neutral space station Omega Point, located just beyond Council space. Captain Meilin Zhang stood on the bridge, watching as her ship approached the massive station where traders from across the galaxy gathered. "Docking clearance granted, Captain," reported her navigator. "They seem surprised to see a human vessel here. They'll be even more surprised when they see what we're carrying," Zhang replied with a smile. The Windfall was the first of a new type of human trade ship. It carried resources that most Council worlds thought impossible to obtain: exotic materials from deep in the Rim, technologies derived from Vex artifacts, and most importantly, efficient fusion catalysts refined from the toxic gas giants that humans had learned to harvest. As Zhang and her crew walked through the trading floors of Omega, Point aliens from Council worlds stared at them. Many had never seen humans before, knowing them only from old reports of the banished species that had been sent to die in the Rim. "Captain Zhang," called a voice. A tall, insect-like alien approached her. "I am Trade Minister Zith of Thraxi. I have received your proposal and find it intriguing." The Thraxi were members of the Council, known for their vast energy needs and complex industrial systems. Recently, their homeworld had suffered an energy crisis as their traditional power sources became depleted. "Minister Zith," Zhang bowed slightly. "I'm pleased you're interested. The fusion catalysts we offer would solve your energy problems for at least a decade." "If they work as you claim," Zith's antennae twitched skeptically. "The Council has declared trade with RIM entities to be discouraged." "Not illegal, though," Zhang noted. "And your people need what we have." Over the next few days, Zhang negotiated with the Thraxi delegation. She showed them samples of the fusion catalysts and demonstrated their efficiency. The Thraxi were impressed but cautious. Breaking ranks with the Council to trade directly with humans would have consequences. In the end, necessity won over tradition. The Thraxi signed the first official trade agreement between a Council world and the Rim Confederation. News of the deal spread quickly. At the signing ceremony, reporters from various worlds gathered. One asked Zhang why humans had succeeded where others had failed in the Rim. "The Council said we couldn't survive in the Rim," Zhang told them, her voice carrying through the room. "They never considered we might redefine what the Rim could be." Within months, human trading vessels became a common sight at neutral ports. They carried resources that Council worlds desperately needed, and their prices were far lower than traditional suppliers charged. More Council races began to quietly negotiate their own deals with the humans. The Council's attempts to maintain their embargo weakened as more member worlds broke ranks. Humanity had found a peaceful way to infiltrate Council space through trade and economic necessity. On one of the oldest Council worlds, elders gathered to discuss the troubling development. "These humans operate on timescales that make no sense," complained an elder named Vorlak. "They establish trade networks in years instead of centuries. They take risks no sensible species would consider. Yet they succeed," noted another elder. "Their currency is beginning to rival our standard credit in some markets." "It's those resources from the Deep Rim," said a third. "How do they extract them so efficiently? We tried for thousands of years and determined it was not worth the cost." The truth was uncomfortable for the Council to admit. Humans, with their shorter lifespans and greater tolerance for risk, approached problems differently. They developed technologies and techniques that Council races had never considered because they came from a fundamentally different perspective. Back in Rim space, on the human colony of Discovery, scientists had made the greatest find yet. Ruins of an ancient civilization whose technology operated on principles completely unknown to the Council. Dr. Maya Chen, great-granddaughter of Ambassador Elena Chen, led the research team studying the ruins. "These artifacts are at least 1,000,000 years old," she explained to Admiral James Chen, her cousin and commander of the Confederation fleet. "The civilization that built them seems to have mastered physics in ways even the Council never approached." "Can we use this technology?" the Admiral asked, examining a strange device that seemed to bend light around it. "We already are," Maya replied. "The new drive systems for our ships are based on principles we learned here. The Council races found these ruins centuries ago but abandoned research because the technology didn't fit their understanding of physics." "Their loss, our gain," James said with a smile. The Chen family had become legendary in the Confederation. For 4 generations, they had led humanity's expansion through the Rim, from Elena's defiance before the Council to Maya's groundbreaking research. As human trade expanded, Council worlds became increasingly dependent on Rim resources. The fusion catalysts alone had transformed energy production on dozens of planets. When a Council world tried to restrict human traders from its space, other trading partners quickly offered better terms, creating competition that further strengthened humanity's position. Captain Zhang's trading company grew to become the largest in known space, with hundreds of ships connecting Rim colonies to Council worlds. When she retired, she was honored at a ceremony attended by representatives from both Rim and Council species. "When we were sent to the Rim, Many thought we would beg to return to council space within a generation, she said in her speech. Instead, we found resources, technologies, and possibilities that the council had overlooked for millennia. Now they come to us. The economic influence of the Rim Confederation continued to grow. Human currency, backed by their monopoly on certain Rim resources, became the preferred medium of exchange even in parts of council space. Human trading houses opened offices on council worlds, bringing with them new ideas and approaches that slowly changed the rigid societies there. What the council had failed to understand was that exile had forced humanity to innovate and adapt in ways they never would have if allowed to develop under council rules. The very harshness of the Rim had driven humans to find solutions that council races, comfortable in their ancient systems, had never needed to discover. 50 years after banishment, humanity had not only survived, but had begun to reshape the economy of the galaxy. And in their research centers across the Rim, scientists like Maya Chen were preparing for the next great step, the return of humanity to the galactic stage, not as supplicants, but as leaders. 70 years had passed since humanity's banishment to the Outer Rim. The Rim Confederation had grown to over 100 colonies, with a population exceeding 80 million. Human trade ships traveled freely throughout the galaxy, and many council worlds had become dependent on resources and technologies from the Rim. Now it was time for the next step in humanity's return from exile. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as the massive doors swung open. Ambassador Sanjay Patel led the human delegation with confident steps. Behind him walked representatives from the Rim Confederation's colonies. But what truly shocked the council members were the 12 non-human beings that accompanied them. "What is the meaning of this?" demanded High Elder Zintar, one of the few council members who had been present for humanity's banishment 7 decades earlier. "Only recognized species may enter the council chamber." Ambassador Patel smiled. "We are all recognized species of the Rim Alliance. I present to you our partners and friends." One by one he introduced them. The insectoid Vrex, whose 6 limbs moved with perfect coordination. The crystalline Lithoi, whose bodies sparkled with inner light. The gaseous Murai, contained in special environmental suits. 9 other species, each more strange and wonderful than the last. None had ever been seen in council space before. "Impossible," whispered a council member. "These species were surveyed centuries ago. They were all pre-spaceflight primitives." "They were ignored and overlooked," Patel corrected. "Just as humans were meant to be. In the Rim, we found each other. We shared knowledge, technology, and perspectives. Together, we have built something new." Patel approached the central speaking platform, the very spot where Elena Chen had stood 70 years before to hear humanity's sentence of exile. "You sent us away believing we would perish in isolation." Patel addressed the council, his voice calm but firm. "Instead, we found new friends, new perspectives, and new ways of thinking. The Rim Alliance represents the fastest-growing economic and military power in the galaxy, and we're here to formally request that the council recognize our sovereignty." The council chamber erupted in chaos. Council members argued with each other, some demanding the Alliance representatives be removed, others insisting they be heard. The Alliance delegation stood calmly amid the disorder, a stark contrast to the council's disarray. After order was restored, Elder Zintar spoke. "The council has existed for 50,000 years. We have guided the development of countless species. What you propose, a multi-species alliance formed without council oversight, has no precedent." "That's precisely why it works," replied Tevek, the Vrex representative. "Humans taught us to look beyond tradition. They showed us how to adapt rather than simply accept limitations," added Crystallis of the Lithoi. The most surprising speaker was a Thraxi representative, a member of a council race. "My world has prospered through trade with the Rim Alliance. Their fusion catalysts saved us from energy collapse. I believe the council must recognize the reality of what the Rim has become." For days the debate continued. The council was deeply divided. The older members clung to tradition and the established order they had maintained for millennia. Younger members saw the benefits of acknowledging and working with the Alliance. During a break in the proceedings, Ambassador Patel met privately with Councillor Marav Cole, now the oldest living member of the Council. "I remember speaking with Elena Chen after your banishment," Marav Cole said. "I told her there were things in the Rim that the Council had chosen not to pursue, and we found them," Patel replied. "The ancient technologies, the overlooked species, the resources the Council thought weren't worth the risk." Marav Cole nodded slowly. "You have done something I never expected any species could do. You've changed the course of galactic history." "We had no choice," said Patel. "The Council gave us nothing but the Rim, so we made it our strength." When the Council reconvened, Patel made his final argument. "You fear what you don't understand," he told them. "That's why you banished us. We've learned to embrace the unknown. That's why we're back, stronger than ever." The vote was closer than anyone had predicted. By a narrow margin, the Council officially recognized the Rim Alliance as a sovereign power with all the rights of Council member worlds. It was a historic moment, the first time in the Council's 50,000-year history that they had acknowledged an independent power formed without their guidance. As the human delegation prepared to leave the Council world, Patel received a message from Earth. It was from Maya Chen, now the elderly leader of the Rim Alliance's Scientific Council, and the great-great-granddaughter of Ambassador Elena Chen. "My ancestor stood where you stood today," her message said. "She believed that what seemed like our greatest defeat would become our greatest opportunity. She was right. The Rim didn't break us, it remade us. And now we've begun to remake the galaxy." The recognition of the Rim Alliance changed the balance of power throughout known space. Trade between Alliance and Council worlds increased dramatically. Cultural exchanges began, with curious Council citizens traveling to Alliance worlds to learn about their strange ways. Most significantly, several Council races applied to join the Alliance, attracted by its dynamic growth and innovative approach to challenges. The rigid boundaries that had defined galactic politics for millennia began to soften. On the Rim world of New Terra, Ambassador Patel met with the Alliance leadership to plan their next steps. "The Council still thinks they've done us a favor by recognizing us," said Admiral James Chen. "They don't understand that this is just the beginning." "They've existed for 50,000 years doing things the same way," replied Dr. Maya Chen. "Change comes slowly to them." Patel looked at the holographic map showing Alliance territory spreading through former Rim space, and now beginning to expand into what had once been exclusively Council domains. "Not anymore," he said. "We've shown the galaxy a new way forward. Multiple species working together, adapting and innovating rather than simply maintaining. The Council's time of absolute authority is ending." Outside the meeting room, Alliance citizens of a dozen species walked together through the streets of New Terra. Humans worked alongside Vrex, Lethoi collaborated with Murai, and members of former Council races who had chosen to join the Alliance added their perspectives. What had begun as humanity's punishment had transformed not just humans but the entire galaxy. The species the Council had banished to die in isolation had returned to lead a new era of cooperation and discovery. Elena Chen's defiant words from 70 years earlier had proven prophetic. The Council had mistaken humanity's greatest weakness for their greatest strength. 100 years had passed since humanity's banishment to the Outer Rim. What began as punishment had transformed not just human civilization, but the entire galaxy. The Rim Alliance, with humanity as its driving force, but fully integrating the contributions of 24 member species, now controlled nearly a third of known space. The massive space habitat called Ascension Station hung at the border between former Council space and Rim territories. Built as a symbol of the new galactic order, it was the largest artificial structure ever created, a testament to what cooperation between diverse species could achieve. On the observation deck, Admiral Elena Chen II watched as ships from across the galaxy arrived for the centennial celebration of what was now called the Fortunate Exile. Named after her great-great-grandmother, the first Elena Chen who had stood before the Council to hear humanity's sentence, The Admiral felt a deep sense of history as she looked out at the stars. My grandmother would have enjoyed the irony, she told her executive officer, a lithoi crystalline entity named Facet. They tried to contain us, but instead they forced us to expand in ways we never would have if they'd let us join peacefully. Facet's crystal surface shimmered with light patterns that indicated amusement. Humans excel at turning disadvantages into advantages. It's why the Alliance functions so well. Below them, the diplomatic reception was in full swing. Representatives from every council world mingled with Alliance diplomats. Former enemies now worked together, though many of the older council races still seemed uncomfortable with the rapid pace of change that humans had brought to galactic society. The newest addition to the Alliance, a gas-based consciousness called the Mirai, demonstrated its ability to process information at speeds that dwarfed even the most advanced AI. Council scientists watched in amazement as the Mirai visualized complex stellar phenomena in real time, something their traditional models would take months to calculate. They still don't understand, do they? Chen said, watching a council elder's expression of barely disguised fear as the Mirai performed its calculations. They think we conquered the rim through force or trickery. What would you call it? Facet asked. Chen smiled, watching as a group of human children played with young Vrex in a zero-gravity game they'd invented together. The sight of species that had evolved on worlds light years apart now growing up together as friends still filled her with wonder. I'd call it the human specialty, finding potential where others see only problems. They thought they were sentencing us to death. Instead, they gave us room to become something greater than we could have been under their rules. In the main hall, Ambassador Patel, now in his final diplomatic role before retirement, addressed the gathered representatives. 100 years ago, the Council decided that humanity was too unpredictable, too adaptive to fit into their vision of galactic order, he said. They were right. We didn't fit their vision, because we were meant to create a new one, Luro. Old Council leader Zintar, now one of the few who remembered the original banishment, stood to speak. We made a mistake, he admitted, his voice quavering with age. We saw your adaptability as a threat rather than a gift. We feared change rather than embracing it. The galaxy is better for our error. It was an admission that would have been unthinkable a century before. A council elder acknowledging a mistake. But the rise of the Alliance had changed even the most ancient institutions of galactic society. As the celebration continued, Admiral Chen received an urgent message from the exploration vessel Discovery, commanded by Captain Maya Chen III, the latest in the Chen family to lead humanity's expansion into the unknown. Chen excused herself from the reception and moved to a private communication room. The holographic image of her cousin appeared, the background showing the bridge of her ship deep in unexplored space beyond the rim. Elena, we've found something, Maya said, her expression a mixture of excitement and concern. Something massive, artificial, and ancient, far older than any civilization we've encountered. The hologram shifted to show a structure that seemed to extend endlessly in all directions, a lattice of unknown material that somehow connected to different points in space-time. Our preliminary scans suggested some kind of transportation network that spans multiple galaxies, Maya continued. It appears to have been dormant for millions of years, but there are signs it might be reactivating. Are you sure it's safe to investigate? Elena asked, knowing the answer before her cousin. Spoke Maya grinned. Of course not. But when has that ever stopped us? We're preparing an expedition to study it more closely. I wanted your approval before we proceed. Elena thought about what her ancestor would have done. The first Elena Chen who had faced the unknown of the rim with nothing but human determination and adaptability. Proceed with caution, she said, but proceed. If there's one thing our family history has taught us, it's that the greatest discoveries lie beyond the boundaries others are afraid to cross. When she returned to the reception, she found council, representatives arguing with Alliance members about the proposed expedition into the unknown regions beyond the rim. The council urged caution, extensive studies, and years of preparation. The Alliance was already assembling a fleet of exploration vessels, They'll never understand us, will they? Said Facet, observing the debate. Perhaps not entirely, Chen replied. But they're learning. A century ago, they would have forbidden such exploration entirely. Now they're just arguing about how to do it safely. As the celebration wound down, Admiral Chen stood alone on the observation deck, looking out toward the darkness beyond the rim, where her cousin's ship was making the next great discovery. The stars seemed endless, full of mysteries waiting to be uncovered. A small child, half human, half Rex, approached her shyly. Are you really Admiral Chen, the one from the stories? Chen smiled down at the child. I'm named after the one from the stories. My great-great-grandmother was the first Elena Chen. Teacher says she's why we all live together now, the child said, because humans don't give up. That's right, Chen replied. When the council sent us to the rim, they thought they were punishing us, but they really gave us the greatest gift of all, the freedom to become what we were meant to be. As she looked back toward the stars, she knew that whatever lay beyond, whatever strange new civilizations, technologies, or challenges waited in the darkness, humanity and their allies would face it together, with the same adaptability and determination that had transformed exile into triumph. The journey that began with banishment had led to the stars, and the next great adventure was just beginning.